I'm John Scott. Hard questions for the commander-in-chief on some key issues facing this country. Obamacare mandates, the Keystone Pipeline, the battle over the minimum wage. Bill O'Reilly pressing the president over the disintegration of African-American families in America, suggesting Mr. Obama could be more vocal on the issue. The president insisting he does address it. Here's part of the president's response.
What's interesting when you look at what's going on right now, you're starting to see in a lot of white working class homes similar problems when men can't find good work, when the economy is shutting ladders of opportunity off from people, whether they're black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, then that puts pressure as well on the home. So you've got an interaction between an economy that isn't generating enough good jobs for folks who traditionally could get blue-collar jobs even if they didn't have higher education, and some legitimate social concerns that compound the problem. And so we want to hit both.
Joining us now, Ellison Barber, staff writer for the Washington Free Beacon. The interesting thing to me about that response is he addresses the economy as though it's this, I don't know, otherworldly living thing that he has no control over. When he was a candidate, the economy was totally owned by George W. Bush. He's 5 years into his presidency, and he's blaming the economy for holding down job creation among all sorts of people as though he has nothing to do with it.
Right. He never seems to take ownership for the policies that he's put in place that obviously affect the economy. And as a leader, you do have to take responsibility for that, because clearly everything that you implement in every not even just economic, but the majority of your policies are going to go towards affecting the economy. And one thing that you consistently see him do, and you saw him do in that interview, is he focuses on the outcome rather than actually addressing issues of opportunity, which I think is sort of what Bill O'Reilly was trying to get at by addressing issues of the family unit. He focuses so much, they talk about a lot about income inequality. And when they say that, what they're really talking about is income discrepancy, which really is not a thing that most Americans would say they hate, because most people look at their own personal situations and they think, well, I worked hard for my money, so I'm happy with that. They don't ever address or talk about the actual root problems that are causing poverty and mobility. Instead, it's just this idea of this, like you said, this other world thing of where some people are really rich and some people are really poor, but it doesn't get at the heart of the problem.
And a lot of people think that Obamacare is actually holding down hiring in this country because, you know, for some small companies, once they reach a certain threshold, their health care costs increase dramatically under the way the system is set up.
Exactly. And Obamacare being a prime example of a lot of regulations that he has put in place where it puts a heavy tax burden on those people that are going to be your job creators in the middle class and small business owners that make them unable to successfully run businesses and create more jobs. And a lot of people would say that that is a direct result of the policies that he has put in that overburden these small business owners with regulations.
He talked about healthcare.gov and the number of people who are enrolling, but you say he didn't really fully answer the question.
Not really. The thing I always want to hear about when they keep talking about how many people have enrolled is what's the demographic breakdown on the state level. People forget that even if there's a federal exchange, it's not a single payer system. So if you're buying insurance in Georgia, which is where I am from, it's not that you're going to be that insurance. If you're the healthy young person, you're not paying for someone in Florida. You're only paying for the high risk pool in Georgia. So you have to see a demographic breakdown of how many young people are buying plans in a state by state basis in order to know if you've actually reached that 40% threshold that they deemed as necessary for it to prevent a death spiral.
And that demographic breakdown is what Kathleen Sebelius, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, doesn't want to give.
Right. And they've given one now on the federal level, and they say 26% of the 3 million enrollees, or the 2.2 million enrollees at the time, had been between the ages of 18 and 34. But by their own estimates, that's still far under. They've before said they needed 40% to prevent a death spiral. But like I said, you have to know it on the state level, or it really does nothing.
The president said that Fox News has been unfair to him. What do you think about that assertion?
I think just because you don't like the premise of an argument or the questions that you're being asked doesn't mean they're invalid or unfair. And the reason why I like journalism and why I sort of like political journalism in specific is that I think it has a unique responsibility to not only provide information to the public, but also to hold elected officials accountable. And whether you love or hate Bill O'Reilly, that's all he's trying to do is make sure that that elected official is held accountable to the constituents and who his viewership is. And so for anyone, I have a problem when people push back on that as saying that somehow it's unfair, because it's not. You should be being held responsible for your actions, and that's what the press is supposed to do for the public.
Does he honestly feel that way, or is it a convenient, I don't know, election issue as we approach the midterms for Democrats?
I think it's maybe a little bit of both. I think this president has a tendency to sort of feel like people are out to get him, but I don't think it's really the case. I do think, though, you see something, case in point, how they often go back to discussing the economy and jobs. And there's something where The Hill had put out an article where they did that 5 times over the last year. And anytime they ran into a little bit of a problem, they like to say, we should be focusing on jobs and economy. I think that was sort of used as a segue out to sidestep some of what he maybe felt like were harder questions, to just be like, well, you guys aren't being fair to me.
Ellison Barber, you can read her in the Washington Free Beacon. Ellison, thank you.
You bet.